So I've been thinking ever since Soul Striker got errated, why does blue feel so mediocre? There's very specific things that are good right now, i.e. Gamma and kind of Android 16 and a couple others, but those are not really mono blue decks. There's all a accumulation of multicolored cards. Even blue yellow might even have some viability right now. But when you're thinking of mono blue strategies, there's not very many things that really come to mind and you're like, hey, I really want to play it. So I've been thinking theory crafting and kind of playing different decks. When it comes down to Vegeta ramp, we have, a pretty good leader where you don't really draw very much, but as the time goes on, you basically get accruement and an allotment of different things that mono blue has, but it kind of loses to blockers and loses to things that have like a lot of negates. It's going to be annoying going against like Bulma or Trunks Vegeta. We have other leaders like Super Saiyan 3 Reboot. We have Zamasu. Both are pretty good and generic, but they have very specific things that it needs. I think Zamasu kind of edges out some of the other blue leaders that we've seen as well. I just don't think it's played very often, and that kind of comes down to today's deck, and that is specifically the Crimson Warrior Goku. And this deck, at least this version and just the idea behind it, is definitely heavily inspired by Marcus Cansarsi's, I think top 4, I don't remember, but he did really well with, in Swiss at least, in the core TCG regional months ago back. And yes, I am revisiting because it is a while ago, but as we look at the current format and as well as the event that's coming up, which is Gen Con, next month at this point, you kind of have to think about what you could see in the Swiss standings or at least just random decks. And I think this guy might end up doing that. On the front side, obviously you can tell that he can draw a good amount of cards. As soon as your opponent swings, you can pitch a card, draw one, and then take a life, and then take a life for their attack as well. And of course you can do it on your attack. And it is nice that you don't need necessarily to go down to 2 life, but all you really need is just 5 Saiyans in the drop. So that actually is pretty easy, not only from this effect, but also comboing and also the other effects that we're going to take a look at. The other nice thing is that you draw 3 and you end up untapping, and the other side, which was kind of like the Soul Striker replacement, which at this point, still not really, but it is nice to consider if you're not going to play Soul Striker due to the errata, is where you attack and then you untap 1, and then the activate battle is basically free combo from what you've used in the drop area, and then untapping 1 and drawing 1, which is also nice when you really need it in a pinch. Now you're thinking, there's a lot of Saiyans out there. What kind of engine do you want to play? That kind of leads to what I've been exploring, which is pretty much some of the stuff that's been explored before, or at least mentioned at the very least, where we have the Unbreakable Goku for not only for the leader effect. If you can't tap 1, or if you don't want to tap 1, you can just use get the same effect on the front side. You can be defensive as well, in correlation with the other stuff like Sensu Bean. We have Nimbus Master, so now you can play 2 cost things on their turn for free, and if you don't need it, then you can just pitch it. And they'll also making those useful in using Unconceivable Might for all of the barrier hate that blue usually runs into. You really don't have too many things in blue that says, hey, I'm going to pay this 1 or 2 energy and get rid of that barrier target. So this is really good against like Trunks Vegeta or any yellow deck that plays Poutine. They also have Baby Golden Avenger right behind, or using it right behind the Astonishing Strike Super Saiyan 2 Gohan, one of my favorite cards ever. And now I get to play a deck that is catered towards it. This has board wipe, it has triple strike, and it can restand. So it pretty much has everything that you need. Then we also have the mono blue good stuff, where we're drawing still quite a lot. You end up drawing a lot of cards in this deck in general, but because of the Baby Unison, because of the awakening, the time that you do use the Baby Unison is turn 3, and then you awaken the same turn, you draw, ended up 4 or 5 with the leader swing, and then now you get to protect it with things like the Saiyan Destroyer or Bean or Dimension Magic, whatever it may be, in order for the Unison not to die, because you're getting 2 markers every single turn, and eventually you're going to use that -5 in order to use the Baby Golden Avenger and then go into the Super Saiyan 2 or whatever other threat that you want to do. You also have the Majin Buu Unison, which Basically, the idea is that by turn 4, you should have -5 on deck for the baby unison. You're effectively protecting the leader because they're not going to be swinging at your leader. They want to get rid of that unison. And then you play the Majin Vegeta or Majin Buu in order to basically draw another card, have one for the baby Golden Avenger. And now you have defense, untapping, and as well as be able to use the Unbreakable and all the other things that you can use on the opponent's turn, like the Realm of the Gods of Barriers Destroys. So there's a lot of good things that you can do, or at least have to your advantage, in order to get rid of a lot of targets and a lot of threats, including the Interceptor, which technically you can pitch to it in order to play it, and then you have a dual attack remove too. But anything that doesn't have barrier, especially if you're going like Sen Shenron, or especially if you're going against like literally anything that doesn't have barrier. The only downside is that things like Gamma has the Android 17, things like Cell has the 4 drops that have barrier, but at the same time, they're not going to be there forever. It's the only downside to this deck, where it's a 3 or less for the Gohan to barrier removal, but at the same time, you can just swing into it. And of course, Zetsu Bean, which is going to be in every blue deck that you've ever seen ever. I don't think there's really, outside of maybe Gamma, that's the only thing I can really think of that Bean maybe not play. And then what about the other barrier targets? So again, blue suffers from barrier a little bit, right? So if you're going against yellow, then you're probably going against Trunks Vegeta, or if you're going against some sort of other variant, the future Gohan deck that I put out, probably not, but still, if you are, then now you have Rebirth of Justice into 100% overdrive. Yes, it doesn't get rid of tokens, but now it still gets rid of all of the barrier threats and makes them mill, which is another factor that the Bono has to take care of. And you might be worried about Poutine or the Trunks Vegeta that rests the 100% overdrive, but you have that Super Saiyan or that Gohan. As long as you have a skill list on board, you can just use it and get rid of it. Here's a list, and you know, it's a pretty standard list. Like I said, there's a few different things that actually help you throughout the game, like the East Kai Keeping Watch for things that are played on your turn, Calamity Challenger, which is just nice to have a deflect target that draws you one and gets you a blocker. Doesn't have barrier, which is a bummer because a lot of the threats, or if not all the things that you do play, end up not having barrier. So that is something that it might be a con, or something that you might look into, that you might need to consider depending if you're going against red or something else, because it does feel bad that your Interceptor that has dual attack, or the 1 cost Gohan that you play on their turn, gets Videlled right after. So you're gonna have to lean on your Unisons or the Super Saiyan 2 Gohan in order to close out the game for you. But we still have Dimension Magic at 4. We still have Bean at 4. Chill's Army's reinforcements. So plenty of defense in order to take care of whatever is thrown at you. I think this deck definitely has some room to grow. It is at 55, not so much as far as the number, but as far as ratios and as well as what you need. But the general idea is there, and I really like the deck just in general. I think period blue is still in kind of a weird spot. Again, Gamma, Android 16, and I don't think there's really many other blue decks that has made a statement lately. But then again, we haven't really had that many events as far as on a monthly basis, not online, not in person. So it's really hard to really tell you what the format looks like. I think it's really all theory crafting right now, and it's really all just speculation up until Gen Con. And then after that, I actually don't know what it's gonna look like for the tournament structure or organized play. I hope to see online events sometime late August or maybe September, October, up until the point that we do have nationals. And nationals did get at least announced, and it's going to be in Florida. So hopefully we'll have some events before then, so that way people can have some invites, because I think that is another concern that people should worry about. But that's a whole other video. If anything, let me know what you think in the comments below. If you want gameplay of this, get me to 50 likes. I've been asking it for previous deck profiles as well. Share it with your friends, get the likes up, and as well as let me know what you would change or any other leaders or decks that you want to see. I am actually working on gameplay for the previous decks, so this is kind of like a future thing, and then I backtrack and then I do those and whatever. Thank you for subscribing. Subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you in the next one.